Sunday. How was your Father's Day? Did you celebrate? Do you partake? Do you participate? We're gonna be talking about Father's Day today. I never really talk about Father's Day or Mother's Day. Most of my people know, like, I don't really give them one. Like, yes, my daughter, I appreciate when she acknowledges me on any occasion. Um, and it's always nice when people remember you and they send you prayers and well wishes, right? Forgive me, allow me to adjust the camera and get comfortable. Um, so well wishes are always welcome, right? It's never a crime. But when you start to get politicized and you learn like how these holidays came to be and what their focus is, kind of like, okay, it feels flat because fatherhood is much more important than Father's Day, right? Fatherhood is more important than Father's Day. And if the system, the culture, the structure is not cultivating healthy fathers and healthy fatherhood to the benefit of its citizens, then the structure is doing you and me a disservice. Am I lying? So, fatherhood is more important than the day. And I think the fact that we have the day, however, is valuable because it gives us a collective sort of vortex in which to dream, in which to engage, in which to dialogue, right, on a topic. Um, for people, different things might have been coming up today. Like some people have the best relationship with their fathers. Shout out to my dads and my uncles and every man that has been, a pillar of strength in my life. Shout out to Uncle John. Um, but yeah, some people have the best possible relationships with their male figures, fathers, grandfathers, uncles, etc. And others, it's like the opposite end of the spectrum, right? And so, depending on where you sit, the experience of, hey, darling, depending on where you sit, the experience of you being, you know, you sort of being conscious of the holiday, right? It'll teach you something about yourself and about your experience. My day is going great. Thank you, darling. Shout out to the community in the chat. Shout out to the chat, like they be saying on Twitch. Welcome, welcome. It's good to have you here. Let me know if you follow what I'm saying. You eating what I'm putting down, my dodo. Chai jeb dodo me. You eat my dodo, my plantain. Okay, so where were we? So fatherhood. So depending on where you are on the spectrum, your experience of Father's Day could be positive or otherwise, right? So I'm gonna focus because the chat will distract me. Um, and so again, it's a portal, it's a vortex, it's a space for us to actually talk about it and engage around it. So I would just love to hear from you. Like, did you celebrate Father's Day? Like, what's your relationship like with your father? Shout out to the great dads. Shout out to the dads who are trying. I really do appreciate that. I have been lucky and that my voice has been heard, and I have been given the space and the love and the care to be able to redesign the way that people engage with me, right? As I have redefined the way that I engage with myself. And so I really, have been reflecting a lot lately, and it's just been so encouraging to see how my parents have evolved and have grown as Nigerian parents. We have all of the Tiger Mom stuff going on. We have all the colonial stuff going on. So it's work. It takes prayer. I'm blessed that I come from a praying family. We do be praying, all of us, all the time. We be acting like real Muslims up in here, constantly talking to God. I am, I'm more culturally Muslim than otherwise. I grew up in the church, but I know that my people really, yeah, they love Allah. And I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Allah. I'm a big fan of Islam. So, God is everything. God is everything. Hashem. So, regardless of where we sit on the spectrum in terms of our relationship with our fathers, having a relationship with the divine tremendous, right? It helps us tremendously. It tends to define our experience in life, right? Either you have a strong core relationship with the divine, whether masculine, feminine, otherwise, right? You have this core understanding, this core conviction that God is real. God got your back. God is here with you. God exists in the trees. God exists in the flowers. God exists in the sound, the music, blah, blah, blah. When you have that conviction, you fall back to it every time. Even if you don't have a father, even if you don't have a mother, even if you don't have no money, even if you don't have all the things, right? And that softening that happens when you get to really sit in the presence of the divine and just exist fully, expressly, freely. It gives you so much compassion for other people because you realize that everybody's going through it. Everybody's struggling. Everybody's fighting to just, let's go another day, baby. Let's just, one more again. I'm not going to die today. Not today, Satan. Not today, Satan. Okay? So, what was my purpose of this message? So, how to love a Nigerian. So, how to love a Nigerian is me articulating the maybe like the spiritual medicine of my specific experience, right? It's like me being able to just like con aggregate, condense all these different things that I've been experiencing and documenting and talk about it through the lens of how to love a Nigerian. And I think that's very important because as the most populous black nation on the planet, right? As I know you got a lot of questions. The young teens, what's up? Thank you for all your comments. Thanks for all the love. Thank you for all. Welcome to all the new people. Welcome to everybody who's been subscribing lately. Y'all are so sweet. I appreciate your support. Okay, so this is the thing where I don't look at the chat. I can stay focused on what I'm talking about, but I'm trying to do better with that. So we're talking about how to love a Nigerian and my sort of like portal of what that is, that sort of a conveyor for my message and my experience as a Nigerian, as someone who is like politically Nigerian. My passport is Nigerian, right? Someone whose birth certificate is Nigerian, someone whose name is Nigerian, whose blood is entirely Nigerian. Even though I grew up in the US, after a couple of years in the UK, I am somebody who was fortunate enough that I never had the opportunity to forget where it was not a thing. Like there are different, this is like where the social classes come in, right? Because for you to be able to afford to forget that you're Nigerian, right? What are you saying? Is that Natasha? What'd you say, Natasha? Like, if you can afford to forget you're Nigerian, you are in a completely different social class than my family, even though we are royal descended. But like, that was not on the table. And so even though like the language thing was not centered all the time growing up, um, the food was. I mean, my parents were straight out of Compton, straight out of Lagos. My stepdad was from Port Harcourt, Benin area, but they were hustlers. They were hustlers. They were grinders. I mean, my sister and I talk about it all the time. Like, how did they do that? Because we don't have half of the strength that they had. Okay, there is no way. And because I grew up on Wonder Bread, these people grew up on cassava, Gary, before the soil got contaminated, like these viruses been doing. They had spoke their language. They had all that sun. They had all that soil, and they were eating their real food, the conch, what they call the conch food. So they were strong. When I said my parents were strong, and for all that they, put out, the energy that they exerted to like really help us have like a really like strong baseline. We never really looked like we didn't have a lot. We never really felt like we didn't have a lot. At least my time, I know that. My sibling, you know, span is quite wide, but I know that our parents tried so hard, right? They worked really hard, and so I recognize. I mean, because you become a parent, like everything changes. Like you now see everything from the you now see everything from the parent side, and you start to understand. Like the more I watch Gilmore Girls, the more I appreciate Emily as much as I used to hate her, right? So I get what the struggle is for a lot of us as parents, but I also feel very fortunate that I've learned through this somatic intelligence that I've been talking to y'all about. I have learned, like, divinely, like concretely, spiritually, tangibly, what it takes to like keep going in authenticity as a parent, and really like what it takes to connect with your child, and connecting with yourself through that channel, right? Children come here to toughen us up. Children come here to teach us. They come here to strengthen us. Like we graduate so many levels just off of having a child and keeping that child. Every day you keep that child alive, like you're graduating because you're learning new levels of wisdom, and it's not easy. The society is not designed in such a way, especially in the West. This is what happens with disruption of indigenous technology and indigenous sciences. Society is not structured in such a way where you are cultivated and taught this is how you find a mate, this is how you build a life, this is how you raise your children, this is how you feed your family, right? Like this is what culture this is what culture is. And what so many people don't understand is the gap in cultural technology, the gap in cultural intelligence, the gap in cultural knowledge is what has created a world where people don't know how to function outside of dependency on the very state that enslaves them. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. It's good to have you here. Welcome, welcome to the family. I'm going to read through all your comments in a little bit. So, the culture is supposed to teach you who you are, where you come from, what you got in that DNA of yours, what you got in that lineage, in that history, who your people, what they've been doing, what their magic powers are. Oriki. Tell me if you've ever heard about Oriki in Yoruba culture. Every family's supposed to have an Oriki, right? Translating, documenting your history, your heroes, painting the picture of your lineage. So I encourage everybody out there to get your family Oriki on video. Do whatever you can, whoever got it, whatever pieces of it you can get that. It's very, very valuable. It's very important. One of those powerful tools for unlocking your superpowers, your super value, your self recognition. Okay, so Father's Day can be really heavy for a lot of people, obviously, for obvious reasons. And, I just want to acknowledge that there has been a war on Black manhood for centuries now, obviously, right? In order for you to take down a people, you got to break down the men. And so we were, slipping on our pimping, whatever happened 500, 600, 700 years ago, and these got, we can't do it again, right? And so the more we understand what we did wrong, where we went wrong in the past, the better we can be about protecting ourselves going forward and protecting our future generations. Am I making sense? Hi, welcome. Am I making sense? Let me know if I'm talking to you, if I'm speaking your language. So if we're not going to play these games again, we have to understand where we faltered and where we keep faltering every day, that we are allowing external warfare coming to our lands, our sacred indigenous heritage. We are allowing these people to come and bomb us because we're not using our technology because they banned it. Our ancestors, the wisest ones, found different ways to store their hoodoo, their magic, their spiritual technology. Whether it was in the music, whether it was in the clothing. Even though these people were outlawing it, we were still documenting it in our hair, in our cadences, in our fashion. So our jewelry, so much to say. Oh, is that right? Where you watching from, William? I thank you. I appreciate your sweet words. So when we think of how to love a Nigerian, it is a portal to the question of intra-ethnic relationships, marriages, dynamics, right? You're talking about fatherhood, Father's Day, the wound, the father wound. We're talking about people reproducing in the new generation. We're talking about millennials. Gen Z is beginning to reproduce. So there is a lot of depth to what could be understood and accessed from the question of how do you holistically love a Nigerian, right? Who is a Nigerian? And what does it mean to love a Nigerian? We have quite a brand. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of opinions, a lot of voices about like the Nigerians who are the Nigerians, right? And we got certain ambassadors out there right now that they're taking the dominant imagination around what it means to be Nigerian and who is Nigerian. And I give them props for, being used in the way that they've been used. And there's a lot of like you must know about all, the pop culture brands, the artists. And I'm gonna shout out a newer artist that I'm hype about. According to title, sometimes title overlaps the names. You might have multiple people with the same name, but according to title, this person has quite a bit of stuff out there. I did listen to some stuff that I know was her. Solana. I need some tones. Can you like output your name with the tones? Because maybe I missed it. I gotta go check the artwork. But Solana is gangster. She is really, really special. Super duper special. I'm gonna see if I can play a clip. Bum 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 bum. Where my 80s babies at? That stuff went so hard. It was like a direct message to 80s babies. And I was asking myself, because she looks Gen Z to me. So for her to be hype on some 80s music, I want to know her story. I was just her aesthetic is just everything. I'm gonna have to edit in some clips of her, but she did make the song officially. Oh, we got the whole video. Oh my god, it's giving me so much life. Oh my god, you gotta go look it up. Solana. Yeah, my mom would tell me what the tones are or what Solana. I gotta look it up what Solana means, but Solano. Let me think. Fasholano. I'm trying to think because it's not a very common Yoruba name, but I can tell that it's a Yoruba name. So if you haven't heard of it, Okunkun by Solana, Solana, really taking Nigeria youth by storm. There was a lot of debate about what uh, genre it was. Some people were saying folk. Solana herself is calling it Yoruba, which is interesting. Um, but I'm just such a huge fan of hers. She's gotten a lot more visibility on the IG than on YouTube, apparently. But if you go join her now, you'll be part of the early community that's hyping her up. So tell her about us. Tell her about Nor Prize. We already messaged her on Instagram that we're definitely going to do a Black Genius. We are working to bring back a Black Genius. We have some guests that we want to prioritize that we've been talking to and leveraging it as an avenue for this re-education strategy that is like deploying slowly through our number one student of Black Genius University, Yetunde Oluwoshoyo. And I'm not going to get too deep into my message on her, but I've been telling y'all that my daughter's in Japan. Cover her with the blood of Yeshua, the love of Yemoja, Mother Idumari. Like all the ancestors watch her and protect her and cover her at all times in Yeshua's mighty name. By the blood of Yeshua. So she's in Asia. I am processing all of these global events that are happening. I am intuiting next steps, best steps for us, for her, right? I am sharing those bits and pieces here now because I have graduated to a place where I recognize the responsibility to educate, right? You leave the place where, interesting, you leave the place where you were seeking approval, seeking recognition from this old world that couldn't possibly handle you, and you enter the place of responsibility and shepherding. I'm going to read some of the comments. You've always wanted to visit Japan. Yes. So my daughter's Substack is cultured media. I've asked her this a couple of times, but I'm gonna share her Substack on my Substack. So if you're not yet subscribed, you can go to Soul Medicine, SOUL medicine.substack.com and subscribe. There's a lot of backlog. There's a lot of stuff that's to come. You can catch up on the videos here if you're new. There's been quite a bit of content, and so if you're family, if you're soul family, then you're gonna recognize a lot of the messages. And yeah, I want to hear from you. I want to know like what brought you here, and what questions you may have, what thoughts are going through your mind when you listen. But my goal to just land tonight, as we kind of put a bow on this fatherhood conversation, is if we're thinking about liberation, we're thinking about futurity, we're thinking about survival, we're thinking about thriving, we're thinking about independence and sovereignty and safety and security. We're thinking about family, right? That's truly cultivated for intimacy and connection and security. This is what the father is really meant to represent in most of our cosmologies, right? The father is the protector. The father is really meant to be the vision holder, which I think there's an opportunity to debate that, right? But the father is the shepherd, right? According to these messages, when we look at Christ, when we look at Buddha, when we look at Allah Muhammad, right? Like the father is presented, even Shango, right? The father is presented as the protector, Ogun, right? The strength, the structure, the boxes, the technology, the systems, right? And the mother is the womb. The mother is the incubator. The mother is the safety. The mother is the security. Hear about that. Okay. And so when do we get to really spend time, analyzing the role of the Black father, the security of the Black father, the war that the Black fathers has been facing for the last 5+ centuries? Welcome back, beloved. Right? How and when do we reorganize, reassess, like redesign, reconstruct our consciousness, our reality, to say, what is going on here? Something is very wrong. And we can't just keep like commenting on the repetitive. No, we need to get to the root of the problem, because something is very clearly very wrong here. Because why is it so rare for us to have a father? Right? And some of that, and then like the freedom that has historically come with some forms of fatherhood, right? So when you have true freedom, you get to define your role, right? We talk about the father holding the vision, the father being the head of the household, the lead, right? How does that man do that without sufficient security for himself, right? And so when you have an onslaught from a foreigner, from an outsider, from an enemy, and you're facing this onslaught continually for hundreds of years, where is the strength remaining to really protect, right? And so the virus itself is fundamentally focused on dividing the Black family, the Black man from the Black woman, the Black woman from the Black woman, the mother from the child. Like wherever we can get some dysfunction going on in this Black family, let's get it popping. Pop, 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 pop. Let's get it popping. That is what the empire depends upon more than anything. Dysfunction in the Black family, in the immigrant family, in the global South family. And so it's wonderful that we are awakening to this. The question is, how do we change it? So when I talk about how to love a Nigerian, it is again first self-mastery and the mastery of the person. You cannot love someone you do not know. You may think you love them, But if you do not know them, you cannot love them. You love your version of them, maybe. You love your understanding of them, but do you know them? How do you know if you know someone? Right? So, what does it mean to know yourself? What does it mean to be known, to be seen, to be recognized, to be understood as who you truly are? I talked last night about survival being correlative with existing as you truly are, without having to perform, without having to create an identity, thinking about Du Bois and the double consciousness, thinking about Shion Bola 2019 and the triple consciousness. Okay, shout out to Ola Williams, who coined that term, triple consciousness. So, unless we can learn how to love ourselves and one another, we cannot stand a chance against imperialism, because imperialism is a virus that will find whatever way it can to infiltrate and penetrate and sicken and divide, steal, kill, destroy. So, unless we are deeply intentional about how we stick together, we will find ourselves at the end of that imperialist virus stick too many more times than we can count. And so we're canceling that. We're no longer participating in that timeline. We're participating in the divine timeline, the indigenous timeline, the rooted timeline, the timeline of the soul. And we're seeing the new world into existence. Right? And so if we are inhabiting this place, this vibration of a new liberated world, what does fatherhood look like? What do we desire for our perfect fatherhood? How can we experience that right now in the present? Quantum Afro-Nowism. Shout out to Black Quantum Futurism, whose literature I am just beginning to crack. So I just want to keep on articulating the importance of the downloads, the raw, pure downloads that you just get for yourself in your privacy, in your silence with the divine. And then the edited publications or the edited conversations that happen after you have engaged literature, right? The scholars, the legacy, the sort of lineage that's come before intellectually, publicly, right? So in Black Sacred Futurity, in the quantum reality, what is the liberated Black father like? What is the experience of the liberated Black father? What is the experience of divine fatherhood, perfect fatherhood? So many of us will have different conceptions of that depending on where we come from, who's taught us, what school of thought we come from, right? What spiritual science or, scripture we trust. But ultimately, we have some conception of the divine father that has been, sort of woven into our subconscious over our lifetimes. When we consider that divine role and the material father figure in our human lives, what is the correlation that we see between the two? How do we feel about the intersection between the two? Are you finding that you trust your divine masculine, your divine father with ease because you also trust your material father with ease? Or is there a contrast there? Is one more trustworthy than the other? What about your divine mother? Right? All of these questions are the eternal questions of sacred Afrofuturism, Black Sacred Futurity, liberation from within, liberated futures, all that good stuff. Because for me, like I've been saying, unless you can liberate yourself within, you cannot hold or embody a liberated reality. Not for long. You will find a way to destroy it. Hi, Athena. I'm gonna say hi to every commenter. Hi, Athena. Arnold. Hi, the young teens. Hi, Williams. See you on. Who else we got up in here? Y'all are so sweet. I really appreciate your energy. If you want to support this work, gosh, I guess Soul Medicine Substack. I've been talking about hosting like a virtual spiritual communion for that community at the end of July ish. So I have to shout out the Glass Bead Game, um, because this is what we're reading for the Afrofuturist like reading group. The Glass Bead Game, also known as Magister Ludi, which I just realized today that they were the same book. So much education to happen. But even this book talks about the concept of leaving this rigid form of education that insists on this ancient European structure of like what is education, their epistemology, right? Arguing for the lived experience as being a critical part of education, in which there has been evolution in recognizing that in the Western canon. But, for Indigenous people, that's kind of the default, is paying attention to our lived experience because we're not stupid, right? So there's a lot to be said about how information is received. And so even the question of like, who teaches a Black man how to be a father? Where does he learn fatherhood? Who are the people producing the shows through which he learns about the examples of Black fatherhood? The shows, the movies, right? Who are the people that have shaped his consciousness and his imaginary when it comes to how he is meant to be with his children, who he's meant to be with his children? What did his ancestors believe? What does his God tell him? What are his sort of blueprints that tell him this is what it means to be a good father? And how is he using that to hold himself accountable? How is he tapping into some community associated with that doctrine or that teaching or that scripture or that way of life, that philosophy? How is he tapping into that community to be held accountable and to be held responsible as a man? To make sure that he keeps his word, to make sure that he does the right thing, to make sure that he's responsible for those who he has vouched his responsibility for. And oftentimes it's the women, right? Like, yes, some men are lucky enough to have great male leadership in their lives that helps them to really like stand out in terms of their character. And others may only get that if they're lucky enough to meet a woman who will reprogram them from within and help them to see the liberated alternative from them just sort of like, you know, recolonizing themselves from within over and over again. Am I making sense? I'm talking to you. So, Magister Ludi, the Glass Bead Game, Black Sacred Futurity, Black Speculative Arts Movement. You can look up the Black Speculative Arts Movement, founded by Ronaldo Anderson, headed by so many people, including Cherie Renee Thomas, just really great heavyweights in terms of Afrofuturist academic literature and like infrastructure and art production, right? Um, and so today I'm just sitting with the question of like, what Black fatherhood looks like in our liberated futures, our liberated quantum now, right? And how that ties into me as a Nigerian woman out in the world, the womb of the world, right? My healing, my womb, my soul womb, my womb soul, my healing, my father, heart space, my healing, my mother, heart space, like all of these things that I'm sort of rewriting from within, recoding intentionally, right? How is that like producing a better world by making more Nigerians raise their vibration and raise their consciousness as people who 1 in 4 Black people in the world is Nigerian? You understand what I'm saying? Like why the heart space of the Nigerian is very critically important for like all Black people of the world, the global South. The heart space of the Nigerian to be healed is a significant benefit for people of the global South. Because when the Nigerian can be healed, when the Nigerian can be true and pure and whole and hope and open to truth and divinity, then every Black person gets impacted by that. Because who doesn't know a Nigerian? Who doesn't know a Nigerian? Name one person who don't know a Nigerian. So if you're watching this, you know at least one. So who don't know a Nigerian, right? So I don't know. The glass became just keeps coming up, and I'm just barely getting into the book, but I guess the question becomes about gamification of materialized futures, right? Intended futures. So Portal X has always been intended as a game. This is why Prof. Anderson recommended this book to me, I'm sure, because there's a overlap there, right? Portal X has always been intended as a game that would reward you for doing the very things that would help to materialize your divine future, your ideal future, right? So whether it's a meditation, whether it's a walk, whether it's a certain dietary change, whether it's certain relationships you're supposed to cultivate, right? Like these are all the things that um, you must touch on when you're trying to make sense of, and you're trying to materialize like your upgraded self, right? Your sort of new level. If you've ever played like Super Mario Brothers or Nintendo or whatever, the kind of games where you see like you're moving up a level, moving up a level, moving up a level, right? Every time you master a certain level of yourself, right? So this is really the work of spirituality. This is really the work of the divine, is to help us like charge forward and intend better and experience better, expect better, and receive better, right? It is not truly the divine design for people to be oppressed perpetually. And if you are paying attention to the writing on the wall, then you probably can already see that, like, yes, we are in a new era. Black people are practically free. It's just about to, it's just about to materialize fully on the outside. But some of y'all see it already on the inside. It's already done, right? So this idea of using our skills, using our games, using our art, using our outputs, our cultural productions to world make, to intend a better reality, a better global reality for us because we can, because we deserve it, because we're capable. Because this is what power means. This is what Black power means. This is what melanin power means. This is what Black girl magic means. Is that when you close your eyes and you intend, you materialize what you desire. So we're gonna do a meditation. Um, there was another book that I was gonna read to you from. So hopefully after the meditation, we'll do a little bit of glass bead and light within reading that book. Okay, so just a few deep breaths. I know your heart if it helps you relax. Let's get real comfortable. And we're just gonna dream up some divine fatherhood. Can we do that? What is the fatherhood that you are intending and receiving for yourself right now? What is that experience like? Let us not take for granted our freedom to dream. It is not a gift afforded to everyone on this planet. You have the ability to dream, you have the right to dream, you have the capability to dream. You must dream. Dreaming is a requirement for liberation. Dreaming is a requirement for liberation. Oh, y'all are so sweet with the comments. Yeah, I'd love to know what more you're curious about. I am digging in deeply into indigenous intelligence currently, and I am receiving that intelligence from different angles. So when I said I was going to read a couple of the books to you, we're going to just read like the first page of Glass Bead Game, as well as we're going to read from the Light book. I might just do a page from Richard Rohr as well, Falling Upward. So let's start with the Lightworker book. Let's see where I left off. Ooh, okay, I think I'm just going to read from here because this is too good. I've spent years trying to work out what my purpose is, trying to fit it into a perfect little box with a step-by-step plan before I would even consider taking the leap. This is reading from Light is the New Black by Rebecca Campbell. I looked at my strengths, listed my gifts, tried to work out the message my soul wanted to share. But still, I held back because I couldn't see every single little step along the way. I wanted to know the final destination before I took the first step. All of the possibilities, purposes, and callings would toss and turn in my head. But I was not acting on any one of them. I was waiting by the phone for the universe to call saying, hey girl, so this is your purpose. The amount of time I spent pondering whether I should be a writer, an actor, a life coach, a healer, an artist, a director, or a fashion designer is absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't matter if I write books, bake cakes, make movies, design cowboy boots, or tap dance on a piano. It doesn't matter if I take photos, do speeches, run a country, teach kids, paint pictures, write comedy, or host a TV show. As long as it lights me up, I will bring my own unique light to everything that I do. The only things that matters is doing the things that light you up over and over again. The only thing that matters is doing the things that light you up over and over again. The only thing that matters is doing the things that light you up over and over again. And letting the light shine authentically through you. Follow the trail of things that light you up and lose yourself in the doing. Before long, you will find yourself right in the center of your purpose and the life you are called to live. This is page 43 of Light is the New Black by Rebecca Campbell. So at the end of this page, she has just a quick exercise. It says, work your light. Are you waiting for a perfect sign from the universe to tell you what your soul purpose is? What can you lose yourself in because you love doing it so much? What can you lose yourself in because you love doing it so much? I once said that if you have something in your life that makes you forget to check your phone, do more of that thing. You know what I mean? You enjoy it that much? You forget, if you're lucky to be somebody who's off social media, then God bless you. But all right, we're going to read the first page of the Glass Bead Game together. I really, yeah, it's okay. I'm going to still go back and read like the prologue, etc. So this is the Glass Bead Game by Herman Hesse. It has quite a bit of introductions, so I want to read from the actual book, and then we can talk about the introductions later. So it starts off, The Life of Magister Ludi Joseph Netz. How it's pronounced. The Call. No knowledge has come down to us of Joseph Netz's origins. Like many other pupils of the elite schools, he either lost his parents early in childhood, or the Board of Educators removed him from unfavorable home conditions and took charge of him. In any case, he was spared the conflict between elite school, and home, which complicates the youth of many other boys of his type, makes entry into the order more difficult, and in some cases transforms highly gifted young people into problem personalities. Net was one of those fortunates who seemed born for Castalia, for the order, and for service in the Board of Educators. Although he was not spared the perplexities of the life of the mind, it was given to him to experience without personal bitterness the tragedy inherent in every life consecrated to the thought. Indeed, it is probably not so much this tragedy in itself that has tempted us to delve so deeply into the personality of Joseph Net. Rather, it was the tranquil, cheerful, not to say radiant manner in which he brought his destiny and his talents to fruition. Like every man of importance, he had his daimonion and his amor fati, but in him, amor fati manifests itself to us free of somberness and fanaticism. That's the first page and change of the last beat game, also known as Magister Ludi. And now we're going to read a little bit from Richard Ward just to exercise our reading muscles. Okay. Richard Ward is a theologian that's come up a lot when I have analyzed my reading, my thoughts, whatever. I'm just going to read the first page. It says, An Invitation to a Further Journey. This is Falling Upward by Richard Ward. Falling Upward, a spirituality for the two halves of life. Let's just read the first page. A journey into the second half of our own lives awaits us all. Not everybody goes there, even though all of us get older and some of us get older than others. A further journey is a well-kept secret. For some reason, many people do not even know there is one. There are too few who are aware of it, tell us about it, or know that it is different from the journey of the first half of life. So why should I try to light up the path a little? Why should I presume that I have anything to say here? And why should I write to people who are still on their first journey, and happily so? I am driven to write because after 40 years as a Franciscan teacher, working in many settings, religions, countries, and institutions, I find that many, if not most people in institutions remain stymied in the preoccupations of the first half of life. By that, I mean that most people's concerns remain those of establishing their personal or superior identity, creating various boundary markers for themselves, seeking security, and perhaps linking to what seem like significant people or projects. These tasks are good to some degree and even necessary. We are all trying to find what the Greek philosopher Archimedes called a lever and a place to stand, so that we can move the world just a little bit. The world would be much worse off if we did not do this first and important task. Richard Ward, my friends. All right, y'all, so we have meditated. We have visualized, we have breathed, we've talked. What you got? Let me just play Solana's song because I hope you don't mind, sis. We're gonna close out on this. Come on, girl, we gotta talk. Girl, we gotta talk. Whew, I'm obsessed. Okay. Bad Gal Solana, that's her YouTube handle. I believe that's her Instagram handle as well. Who else can I shout out today? Yeah, shout out to Macau and Eve of New Haven Artist Community. Shout out to the Portal X group chat. Go to portalx.space, join the WhatsApp group chat. Go to soulmedicine.substack.com. Subscribe. Become a paying member if you would like to be part of a group spiritual experience at the end of July. And yeah, if you want some consulting, bug us. I have a few spaces for identity coaching. So if you need a partner in midwifing your next life, your ideal version of yourself, you need a coach, you need a bestie in that journey, team@narlabs.org. Hit us up. You can drop a comment here, but you're better off just emailing us. Okay. We'll be adding links and stuff soon. God help us. But yeah, we do tech strategy, we do team building, we do retreats, we do creative, immersive experiences. It's a whole lot of options. So get at us. All right. I love y'all. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all your energy. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. We cover you in the blood of Yeshua, the water of Yahweh, the good love, the light of the divine, of the universe. All good things. All good things come to me. All good things come to me. All good things come to me. Ashe.